What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to talk about Quicksilver. And yes, I know, we just did a Quicksilver video a couple of days ago, but they did that thing Fantasy Flight Games did, where they went and did a stream showing off a bit of Quicksilver, but they didn't drop an article, so I went and made a video, and then they went and gave us an article giving us loads more information. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? Not go through all the new stuff? Doesn't sound like me, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't sound like me. We will be touching on what we saw in the previous video, but we are going to make sure it is nice and different for you, lovely ladies and gentlemen. Now, this is actually a very good thing, because I do have a quick, not so much a correction to make, but a quick addition. You see, we've got Pietro Maximoff, and he's all lovely, and you get to discard 2 cards from your hand and draw 2 cards, but if Wanda Maximoff is in play, you get to draw 3 cards instead. Not sure if we actually went through this in the previous video. It's a really nice skill, just in terms of, it doesn't really get you any extra cards, but it cycles through your deck faster to hit the combos that you need, and as we mentioned in the previous video, Pietro hitting combos is quite nice. In terms of the stats, recovery of 3 is standard, hand size of 6 or 5 is standard, hit points of 9 is low and feels low, but we'll get there in a second, and thwart of 1, attack of 1, defense of 1 is low. But we did have a chat in the previous video about how actually it really isn't as bad as it looks. Because of course, we saw all kinds of cards. I mean, we saw maximum velocity, which gives you an extra 2 thwart, 2 attack, and 2 defense until the end of the round. And we saw hyper perception, that gives you +1 thwart until, well, it's actually an upgrade, it just gives you +1 thwart. So essentially what you do is you're boosting with Quicksilver, you're boosting up all of his stats, and then of course we've got Quicksilver's skill itself, that after you use a basic power, thwart, attack or defense, you ready him, and then we've got things like always be running that readies him as well. And we did give a quick shout out to Serval Industries that helps you, well, you shuffle 2 Quicksilver cards from your discard pile into your deck, and it's a support, so you can do that every turn you're in Alter Ego mode, bearing in mind you've then got the Alter Ego skill to draw them. It's looking pretty good. Here's the thing that I did not make enough of in our previous video. You see, Quicksilver's skill is limited to once per phase, and I read it as once per round. You see, with Quicksilver, when you attack, you make yourself ready. When you thwart, you make yourself ready. But when you defend, you make yourself ready. And it is limited once per phase. That is, once during the hero phase, and once during the villain phase. So what that essentially means is that if you can boost up your defense nice and, I mean, even if you can't, to be honest, but the goal here is that you boost up your defense nice and high, and then defending doesn't really have a downside. Because generally speaking, when you defend, oh no, now I'm exhausted, I can't attack or thwart next turn. But that's not an issue here, because you ready yourself immediately. Oh. And it does mean that you can actually defend against 2 different attacks in the same turn. So in the previous video, I talked about Hawkeye having low health, low HP, and that's true, incidentally, he does. But because you can ready yourself when you defend, in addition to in the hero phase readying yourself when you thwart or attack, Hawkeye ends up becoming a lot better than I gave him credit for. You have my apologies for that. Thank you to the lovely folks over on the Facebook group for pointing that out, although I don't have the person name in front of me. I'm really sorry. So that's kind of awesome. And then we've got a bunch of other cards to talk about as well. You see, I showed you just a second ago Hyper Perception, a 2-cost upgrade that gives you +1 thwart. And I told you that there was going to be similar cards for attack and defense, and then I suggested they would almost certainly be 2-cost upgrades that give you +1 attack or +1 defense. Well, the good news is we've now had a look at Reinforced Sinew, a 2-cost upgrade that gives you +1 attack, and Accelerated Reflex, a 2-cost upgrade that gives you +1 defense. So if we put this all together, the 3 upgrades should be putting Quicksilver to 222, which is awesome. But then we've got that lovely maximum velocity card that will actually put you up to 444. And then, of course, you make yourself active once during your phase, and like I say, that can be hero phase and villain phase. And you've got Always Be Running, we kind of expected these cards, but it's nice to see them, and honestly, I mean, it's kind of like I mentioned in the previous video. Honestly, Quicksilver is not one of my favorite Marvel heroes. He's just not. And I know we've had two different representations of the films, in the films, and I didn't really love them. Yes, obviously the X-Men one was better. And when we first saw the reveal, I went, well, you're making yourself active and that's lovely, but let's face it, it's not exactly like you're going to be able to do all that much when you got basic stats of 1-1-1. But now we've got all of this, and it just gets awesome. Now, we didn't actually have any new protection cards to look at in the previous video, but we do today. Is of course worth noting that Quicksilver does come out of the box as a protection hero. So we got the 1-cost upgrade here, Armored Vest, which you play under any player's control. It is limited to 1 per player, and you get +1 defense. But remember, if you're playing Quicksilver, you're hopefully also going to have Accelerated Reflex, which is going to give you +1 defense. So that is going to give you free defense right off the bat before you start boosting it up with any other cards, and you probably will be boosting it up with other cards, and you're making yourself active. I know it's a protection deck, but I don't defend all that much. I'm too aggressive as a player. But if you can give me a defense of 5 and I can defend without then making myself exhausted for the hero phase, it's going to be hard to convince me not to defend, ladies and gentlemen. This is kind of nuts. The other one we've got here, we've got a lovely event, Never Back Down. Now it is a 1-cost protection event, and there's a hero interrupt on defense. When you defend against an attack, you get +2 defense for this attack. If you take no damage, you stun the attacking enemy. Now, I know that Quicksilver's got a naturally low defense, we've talked about that already, but we've also talked about the fact that Quicksilver does not particularly struggle to boost up his defense. And clearly here, being able to stun a villain is amazing. I mean, it could be a minion, but a lot of time you're going to want to stun the villain. Now, bearing in mind, Quicksilver is, as we keep talking about, Quicksilver is able to defend essentially for free a lot. So if you can be stunning the enemy and then defending for free against minions, I know that this is built as a protection deck. But even bearing that in mind, there isn't half an awful lot of protection going on here. But definitely the coolest card that was revealed over the past couple of days is Multiple Man. Now, on the face of it, Multiple Man doesn't really seem to work. 1 fort with 1 damage to itself, or 1 attack with 1 damage to itself. Bearing in mind we're generally looking for 2 with 1 damage to be good. And then 4 cost 2 health, when my rule with minions essentially is that we want at least equal health to cost, if not slightly higher health. So frankly, we're looking at this, and the stats on the face of it are bad, and I'm not impressed. But the skill. After Multiple Man enters play, search your deck and hand for a copy of Multiple Man and put it into play. Shuffle your deck if it was searched this way. So what we've essentially got, now it has been confirmed that there are 3 copies of Multiple Man in the deck. So essentially that means that you can kind of keep going. Now what it actually says on the website is, arriving as the game's first non-unique ally, you can include 3 copies of Multiple Men or Multiple Man into your deck. So clearly they've got to give you 3 in the deck, or at least 1 or 2 in the deck plus more to the side. But you know what I mean? You can play 3 of these, and that's wonderful. Because okay, it might be a 4 cost, and the 4 cost might be moderately expensive, but at least it's got the decency to essentially get 3 of them out. And the great news is you can play from your hand for free or your deck for free. It is very much worth noting here, you do not get to play 1 for free from your discard pile. So if for whatever reason you've ended up with 1 in a discard, it's been discarded from your hand or whatever, you don't get to get that from the discard pile and then go ahead and play it, which is slightly sad, but it really is not the end of the world. And okay, the health is low, and okay, the thwart and attack is also kind of low. But the way I see Multiple Man is, just go for it. Just play these down and you've got 3 blockers, or 3 all attacking, or thwarting, or mixing it up as you go. The stats on Multiple Man are still bad, but at least you get 3 of them out at the same time, and that's kind of beautiful. Now, we did actually and we have talked about this in a previous video, but I didn't mention it in the last Quicksilver video, so I don't know. Mention it here quickly. We do have Warlock who's coming in as a protection ally. This was shown off I believe this was shown off during the stream at Gen Con. Now, this is not actually a Hawkeye card. This is just a protection card, just like Multiple Man. And free cost, free health, 1 fort, 1 attack, taking a damage each. But it's got an action that lets you spend a science resource to heal up to 2 damage from Warlock. So essentially what you're probably going to end up doing here is just healing up again and again and again. So you thwart or attack, then you thwart or attack, and now you've got 1 health remaining, so you spend a science resource to heal up, and even though the stats are bad, you should be having Warlock attacking or thwarting for 1 damage every single turn after he enters play. So I think that's probably about worth it. I remain very, very excited about Quicksilver. There were new cards to show you. I had to show you. It would be frankly rude if I didn't. And honestly, the only thing that's happening here is I am just getting more and more excited as time goes by. But I'd like to know how you feel. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk about Marvel Champions and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.